Hello and welcome to Pock and Rob. As I mentioned in my forward look into what I'll be doing through the year, I am going to do my top 50 albums of the first 5 years of the 2020s so far. Before I go in and rank the 50 albums, I would remind you to subscribe if you haven't already done so, to click the thumbs up to like the video, the bell for notifications of future content, and to share the video with someone else who might like it. It might surprise you that I've got 50 albums, but I actually found this quite hard to whittle down to those 50. I'm going to run through this fairly quickly. I'll mention each album and perhaps one or two songs that, if you haven't got the time to listen to the whole thing, to go and source out on a streaming platform of your choice. So number 50, Voyage by ABBA. Not one of ABBA's greatest albums, but it is a wonder that it exists at all. If you haven't got the time to listen to the whole thing, I would urge you to check out Don't Shut Me Down, Just a Notion, I Still Have Faith in You. And it's a solid ABBA album. Like I say, the fact it exists 40 years after their breakup is wondrous. ABBA Voyage at number 50. Number 49, The Foo Fighters' Medicine at Midnight. Not really ever listened to the Foo Fighters before listening to this, and from what I have heard, I like this a lot more than their back catalogue, which is, a lot of Foo Fighters don't like this album but love their back catalogue. I'd urge you to check out Love Dies Young and the title track Medicine at Midnight if you would like to sample this album. At number 48, an album that keeps rising step by step. This was number 50 when I first tried recording this. It's now number 48 and it's getting better with each listen. Taylor Swift, Tortured Poets Department from last year. Clara Bow's a great track. The title track is really good. Fortnight. Who's Afraid of Little Old Me? Some really good tracks on the Tortured Poets Department. This is the anthology, so there's a whole album's worth of other material that I'm not quite as familiar with. Number 48, Tortured Poets Department. And number 47, The Latham's second album, From Nothing to a Little Bit More. I enjoy every track on this until I get to the last one, which is why it tumbles down the list. Struggle, great song. Say My Name, Sad Faced Baby, Facets. It's a really good sophomore record from the Lathams. At number 46 is Growing Up by Luke Combs. This is part of a duology. The second one is called Getting Old. You put the two together, you have a full face of Luke Combs. He's a country artist that I started listening to as a result of someone else who'll be coming up later on this list. I would cite doing this as a really good entry point to this record. There's not a huge amount that is memorable, but it's a good time every time I hear it. And number 45 is another country artist. It's Lady A with What a Song Can Do. I listened to this album not long after my dad had died, and it therefore kind of hit me in the feels a little bit more. The title track is great. Things You Handed Down is that particular one that really got me. Also, Friends Don't Let Friends Drink Alone. Really, really good country song. Number 45. At number 44, Mac Powell, New Creation. This is a really solid Christian rock album. And Mac Powell used to be the lead vocalist to Third Day. On here, we've got 1991, the song about his conversion. The title track is really fine as well, as is Everlasting Arms. At number 43, Bruce Dickinson's Mandrake Project. A great heavy metal album. I like my Bruce Dickinson, generally speaking, when it is in Maiden. And actually, there's a track on here that Maiden did on the Book of Souls album. It's just now been renamed Eternity Has Failed. I would also cite you Afterglow of Ragnarok and Rain on the Graves as really fine tracks as samplers for this record, Mandrake Project, at number 43. Number 42, an album that has improved as I've listened to it a little bit more. It is Divinely Inspired to a Heavenly Extent by Lewis Capaldi. I didn't like this when I first heard it. I thought it was it wasn't as good as his debut. But on here is Forget Me, which is great, and Wish You the Best, which kind of feels like he's channeling Adele a little bit. Divinely Inspired to a Heavenly Extent at 42. And at 41, one of the biggest surprises of the year it came out, Sting's The Bridge. I had written off Sting since 10 Summoners Tales as boring. This is anything but. So on here is Harmony Road, which is just great time signatures, terrific song. The Bells of St. Thomas, and Rushing Water, and If It's Love. My number 41, The Bridge by Sting. And number 40, Graham Day's Master of None. This album most definitely channels the Who's Who Sell Out period, along with a sprinkle of the Kinks. I would cite the title track, Master of None, along with Rose Thorn Sticking in Your Mind's Eye. Great album. Number 40, Graham Day, Master of None. At number 39 is The Lottery Winners with Something to Leave the House For. And this is probably the album I know the least out of everything I've listened to, but every time I put this on, I've really enjoyed it, and I really like The Lottery Winners. It features, of course it does, a collaboration with Frank Turner. I think every single one of their albums, certainly since this one, has got a Frank Turner collaboration on it. Something to Leave the House For at number 39. At number 38, Ribbon Around the Bomb by Blossoms. Never heard of them before I listened to this in 2022. But as a result, I've started to dip into their back catalogue and, of course, their new album, Gary. Title track, well worth checking out. As is the track, The Sulking Poet. I can never remember the title because to me that song is called Juliet because that's the refrain of the song. Absolutely lovely album, actually, Ribbon Around the Bomb. It's my number 38. At 37 is an album I don't own, and it's Road by Alice Cooper. I didn't think Alice Cooper had done anything worth listening to since Poison in 1989, but when I checked this out in 2023, I was surprised by how good the record was. So you've got stuff like Big Boots and White Line Frankenstein and I'm Alice and Welcome to the Show, and it's a really good Alice Cooper album, let alone a great rock album. My number 37. At 36, I have placed Holy Water by We the Kingdom. I checked this out in 2020 when it came out. A Christian worship southern rock type album. And on here I would cite Child of Love, really, really fine song. And the title track, Holy Water. And Cages. Cages is a really good opening track. My number 36. At 35 is The Proclaimers with Dentures Out. I think this is their best songwriting since probably the Sunshine on Leith album. Most tracks are below 3 minutes. Then nothing overstays its welcome. So Praise, Dentures Out, Sundays by John Calvin, The Audience Knew, and The World That Was. So many really, really enjoyable tracks on Dentures Out by The Proclaimers at number 35. And number 34 is Jack White, Entering Heaven Alive. Now, I can't say that I was a big fan of the White Stripes or anything else by Jack White, but Entering Heaven Alive is a really pleasant acoustic album. Best track on here is Taking Me Back Gently, but I also really, really like Please God Don't Tell Anybody, Queen of the Bees. Really good record at number 34, Entering Heaven Alive by Jack White. At number 33 is country artist Jacob Bryant with Barstool Preacher. I can't remember why I chose to listen to this album, but I'm glad I did. Has my song of the year from the year it came out, 2022, which was Well Whiskey Discount Cigarettes. But I also really, really like Baptised by the River. I was hoping this guy might put some stuff out this year. I'll keep an eye out. If there's an album by Jacob Bryant, I will be listening to it. It's my number 33. At number 32, the album that I think was the best pop album of 2020, Dua Lipa's Future Nostalgia. This is the Moonlight edition, so it's got a whole album's worth of additional stuff. On here is Levitating and Physical and Break My Heart and Don't Start Now. But the best track is the last one, Boys Will Be Boys. Dua Lipa's Future Nostalgia at 32. At number 31, an album that was well over 25 years in the making, I.O. by Peter Gabriel. He released every track as a single from this on each of the full moons. It's a really odd release schedule. This is the dark side mixes. You can buy an album that's the bright side mixes. I only need one copy, so I've got the dark side. Panopticon, The Core, Olive Tree, the title track I.O. I.O. by Peter Gabriel at number 31. At number 30 is Mac Powell again, this time with I Love Jesus. This album came out last year. As a result, it's one of the ones that I've listened to less than many others on this list here. The title track is terrific, so is That's What the Cross Is For. Mac Powell, if you don't already know, is or was the lead singer of Third Day, and it's one of those people I could listen to sing the songbook and have a great time every time. I had to source this from America because I don't think it's been released in the UK on CD anyway. I Love Jesus by Mac Powell at number 30. At 29 is a-ha with True North. This is a great a-ha album. It's not quite the level of something like Casting Steel or Foot of the Mountain or Hunting High and Low, but it's a really good listen. As If and I'm In, Forest for the Trees and Bluest of Blues and Bumblebee. Really good record. True North by a-ha at number 29. At number 28 is The Struts with Strange Days. I'm a big admirer of The Struts. I can't say I'm a fan, but Luke Spiller's vocals are absolutely terrific. Strange Days, the title track, features Robbie Williams. The best track on here is I Hate the Way I Want You, which features Joe Elliott. And then there's another featured artist on here on another hit of Showmanship, which is Albert Hammond Jr. from The Strokes. Really fine record, Strange Days. And if you've never listened to The Struts, I'd urge you to give them a check this out, which is probably their finest record. Strange Days from 2020. And number 27 is an album my daughter owns, and I've sneaked it out so I could put it on the video. Found Heaven by Conan Gray. This is an 80s style pop album and really, really good stuff on here. So the winner, the final track is absolutely fantastic. It's got Bourgeoisie's on, which is okay. Fainted Love. This so channels the 80s, and that's totally my wheelhouse. Conan Gray's Found Heaven at number 27. At 26, George Ezra's Gold Rush Kid. We need more people like George Ezra who write uplifting pop songs. And this contains its title track, obviously, alongside Tiger Lily, Anyone for You, and Green Green Grass, and the beautiful Sweetest Human Being Alive. Gold Rush Kid at number 26. At number 25, I have placed Liam Gallagher's Come On You Know, an album I did not expect to like as much as I did, mainly because I find Liam Gallagher, along with his brother, a bit of a tit. But this is a really good record with tracks like Come On You Know and More Power and Diamond in the Dark. Come On You Know, great album at number 25. And number 24 is Getting Old. This is the second part of that duology I mentioned with Growing Up. The title track is Growing Up and Getting Old. There's also If He Could See Me Now, which is it seems to be about his late father, but I think his father's still alive, as we all shall see very shortly. Great cover as well of Tracy Chapman's Fast Cars. This is a double album. Like I say, it's a duology with Growing Up. It's my number 24. 23, one of my hotly anticipated albums of this of the year it came out, indeed of the decade, and it was Senjutsu by Iron Maiden. I am a big Maiden fan, and I was well stoked for the release of Senjutsu. It did not disappoint. It's a 10-track album, it's a double CD, a triple vinyl, and it is full of tracks that are over 10 minutes long. But the best stuff on here is things like Stratego, which is a good punchy Maiden track, and Riding on the Wall, the lead-off track single, is also really fine. But I like Hell on Earth. I really like The Darkest Hour. And it's a good, not necessarily great, but a good Maiden album. But a good Maiden album is often greater than many artists' great albums. Senjutsu at number 23. And number 22 is another album I don't own. It came out last year. And it's Luke Combs again. And this time it's Fathers and Sons. I had an emotional response to this record. There's the opening track, Front Door Famous, about being on tour and then coming back to your little boy and then being so excited to see you. I can't exactly relate to it, but it's a really pleasant track. Take Me to the Ball Game's really good. And Little Country Boys. I am keeping an eye out for a copy of that at a price that I'm willing to pay. And then at number 21, this is my son's copy of Amelia by Mimi Webb. I want to keep an eye on this artist. So I understand that she kind of went to the Brit school, so she's following the footsteps of Adele, but she's a good pop songwriter. Red Flag's great song on here. House on Fire is really, really good. Last Train to London is fantastic, but my favourite is probably on the second half of the album, and that is It Possible? I'm keen to see what she's going to do. I understand there might be a new album coming from her this year. Mimi Webb's Amelia, number 21. I enter my top 20 now with, at number 20, Will of the People by Muse. This is kind of like, the band have said themselves that their label wanted a greatest hits, and they said no. So what they actually produced was an album of new songs that's the greatest hits. It is like listening to the best of Muse, but new material. You Make Me Feel Like Halloween and Compliance. It's The Will of the People. It's an absolutely great record, and I'm again hoping that there's something new coming from Muse. They do seem to be on like a 3-year cycle with their albums, so we probably due one this year. Will of the People by Muse, number 20. And number 19, The Returner by Alison Russell. Now this is her second album. I only came across her as a result of listening to Outside Child, which was a really good album, but I absolutely love Returner. I love the melodies, I love the sound constructions. I'm astonished that I managed to pick this up from a record fair for a tenner. It was a bargain. So on here is stuff like Evil's Black, which I think got Grammy nominated. Demons is an absolutely terrific track, as is Springtime and Shadowlands. This is a really solid record, which I think kind of disappeared and flew under the radar. For me, much better than Outside Child. Returner by Alison Russell at number 19. At number 18, The Fizz with Everything Under the Sun. This is going to be, for me, the last Fizz album. Mike Nolan has retired. The two ladies, Cheryl Baker and Jay Aston, are carrying on, but with a couple of additional vocalists, but it ain't The Fizz, or even Bucks Fizz without Mike. And I kind of wonder, this sounds like a goodbye to the fans when you've got things like Everything We Do It For You on it. And I'm on My Way, which references Bucks Fizz material so deeply. A great cover version as well of this one by Paul McCartney. The best track on here is probably the really haunting ballad Pretty Soon, which I think is sung by Cheryl. Really good album, Everything Under the Sun by The Fizz. My number 18. At number 17, Saviours by Green Day. I saw Green Day live last year with my son on the 30th and 20th anniversary, respectively, of Dookie and American Idiot. They only played 5 tracks on Saviours, but it's a really, really good album. I think it might even be in my top 3 ever Green Day albums. I'm going to do a Green Day album ranking at some point. So there's stuff on here like Susie Chapstick and Strange Days Are Here to Stay, as well as the lead-off singles of Look Ma No Brains and The American Dream Is Killing Me. It's Fancy Sauce, which feels like Basket Case kind of grown up. And Father to a Son. It's such a good album, actually, Saviours, and it gets better every time I listen to it. My number 17. And number 16, Taylor Swift's Evermore. This was my favourite album of 2020 when I originally did my first ranking of that year. It has slipped a tiny little bit. It was there mainly because how much I adored Nobody No Crime. But I do also like Willow and Champagne Problems and Marjorie. I just think it's perhaps a little bit too much of more of the same of something that we will see come up shortly. Evermore, number 16. And number 15 is the album that I've probably listened to the most out of everything on this list. McCartney 3. I was so stoked for this record when I heard it was being released. To finally complete his self-titled trilogy, made in lockdown, it was a joy to get. It was one of the few highlights of actually having had a lockdown in the first place. Pretty Boys, Long-Tailed Winter Bird, When Winter Comes, Seize the Day, Slide In, which I didn't like when I first heard it, but has just got better and better. And some experimental as well, like Deep Deep Feeling. It's a really good McCartney album. My number 15. At number 14, I have placed an album that I think is a concept album. It's Joe Jackson presents Max Champion in What a Racket. The central conceit of this being that these are music hall songs that have been lost for over 100 years by a person called Max Champion. That seems so relevant to today, but we know it's really Joe Jackson's writing. It's so much fun on a record and so enjoyable, and the songs are great. This Sporting Life is fantastic. So is The Shades of Night, The Actress and the Bishop, the show. Think of the show, but The Thespian's Lament. So well written, and if you haven't heard it, I'd recommend you check out What a Racket. It's a delight. It's my number 14. Number 13, the Lathums debut album, How Beautiful Life Can Be. This is like the Smiths if the Smiths were cheerful. Beautiful title track of How Beautiful Life Can Be. I See Your Ghost, which is like a patter song, and it's a joyful, life-affirming debut record. Their third LP came out a few weeks back, and I'm enjoying that as well. The Lathums, one of the best new bands to come out of the 2020s, with How Beautiful Life Can Be at number 13. And number 12, Lemon Twigs with A Dream Is All We Know. This came out last year. I found them as a result of another album that will be coming up later on my list. This is a really upbeat album. They are channeling Wings and the Beatles and Beach Boys on this record, with stuff like Golden Years, Dream Is All We Know, Peppermint Roses. If you haven't heard the Lemon Twigs, I'd urge you to check out this. And indeed, something I'm going to mention a little bit later. It's my number 12. And number 11, The Lottery Winners with Anxiety Replacement Therapy. This is such a good record. On here is... It's again, I think this is a concept album. You have little bits of narration that sound strangely weird, and I think they're done by Stephen Fry. We've then got Worry opening the album, which kind of sets the scene as to why you've got something called Anxiety Replacement Therapy. A track called Sertraline, a treatment for anxiety. I Can Always Count on You to Let Me Down, featuring Boy George. Letter to Myself, featuring Frank Turner, which is my favourite track on the album. Burning House, which the bassist gets to take the lead vocal on. Really, it's such a great record, Anxiety Replacement Therapy. I'd urge anyone to go and listen to it. My number 11. Into my top 10 now. And at number 10, I think Blur's best record, The Ballad of Darren. Probably going to be their last. There is no fat on this record at all, unlike virtually every other Blur album. I would cite The Brutalist, really good song, Avalon, the lead-off track, The Narcissist. This is Blur at their best, and like I say, absolutely no fat on this album. It's their shortest album. I think it's about 36 minutes, and it's all the better for it. Blur's The Ballad of Darren at number 10. And number 9 is my best Christian album of the decade so far. Healer by Casting Crowns. Casting Crowns originally came out 20 years ago with the self-titled debut, which is fine. This is their best work. Healer, the title track, is terrific. I also like Scars in Heaven. That hit me in the feels. Again, having lost my dad this decade. Second Opinions, really, really challenging and fun track. Number 9, Healer, Casting Crowns. And number 8, Taylor Swift's Folklore. So this is the album that she ended up recording mostly on an iPhone with her producers Aaron Dessner and Jack Antonoff. I have issues with Jack Antonoff's production, but not on this, where it works perfectly. She won the Grammy for Folklore. It was cited by many as being the best album of 2020, and I have to agree. I do think it is the best thing that I heard from the year 2020. On here is Last Great American Dynasty, the track Betty, where she plays the character of a 17-year-old boy who'd just done the dirty on his girlfriend. It's a really solid record. Folklore by Taylor Swift, my number 8. And number 7, McFly's Power to Play. This is their metal album. They said they wanted to record an album of the stuff that they enjoyed listening to. So Land of the Bees is great fun. Where Did All the Guitars Go? Interesting to note that we've only ever had 3 weeks at number one this decade so far with bands. Where did all the guitars go? I'm Fine is really good. And then possibly their best song, at least since All About You, and it's Honey, I'm Home. My number 7, Power to Play by McFly. At number 6, this album just keeps rising every time I listen to it. Post Malone's F1 Trillion. Now, I would never have thought that I would ever put anything by Post Malone in my top albums of the year, let alone my top albums of the decade so far. This is a country record, and it's done well. It's a country record in exactly the way that Cowboy Carter isn't really. Collaborations all over here with Hank Williams Jr. and Luke Combs again, Morgan Wallen, and Lainey Wilson, who contributes vocals on, I think, the best track on here, which is Nosedive. But I also adore Yours, right at the end, which is just Post Malone. And MEXICO, and I Had Some Help, and I Ain't Got a Guy for That. Terrific album. I am keeping an eye out for this on vinyl at the right price, because it is such a good record. I want more country Post Malone. F1 Trillion, number 6. Top 5 time. And number 5 is my favourite album from 2022, although it's not my best album of 2022. Charlie by Charlie Puth. What a pop album this is. Absolutely great songwriting. My experience of Charlie Puth up to here was Marvin Gaye and probably Attention off Voice Notes. But this album surprised me with how well written it is. This guy knows how to do a verse, then some different melodies and link parts towards a different chorus. This is not 4 chords cycled over pop. This is proper songwriting from Charlie Puth. I would direct you to Smells Like Me, which is my favourite track off the record. But I also love Tears on My Piano and Charlie Be Quiet, and That's Hilarious. Left and Right featuring Jungkook from BTS. My favourite album of 2022, if not my best, because my best album of 2022 is just above it, and it's The Boy Named If by Elvis Costello and the Imposters. This is classic top drawer Costello. I think this is in his top 10 albums of all time. And on certain days, I might even nudge it into the top 5. And that's up against some great competition. So we have the title track, The Boy Named If, Penelope Halfpenny, The Difference, which was in contention for Best Track of the Year, just beaten out by Jacob Bryant. The Man You Love to Hate, Mr. Crescent, Paint the Red Rose Blue. Great album. Absolutely terrific Costello album. Made me excited for Costello again. The promise of which was dashed almost immediately when he released the Coward Brothers album that I just hated. But Boy Named If, it's my best album of 2022. And number 3 is a triple album, released as 3 separate albums, but it is one project. It's Heart and Soul by Eric Church. I didn't know who he was until Heart and Soul came out, and I love this record. Heart of the Night, Break It Kind of Guy, Russian Roulette, Heart on Fire, Hell of a View, Lynyrd Skynyrd Jones, and then there's the EP that was only released to his fans, which you could only get a couple of years later as a physical normal release, the And part, which has got Through My Ray-Bans and Kiss Her Goodbye. Really solid. It's a double album, given the fact there's 9 tracks on Heart, there's 9 on Soul, and then there's 6 tracks on the EP. But it's such a good record project as a whole. Heart and Soul is my number 3. And number 2, this could have been number 1 on a different day. It's Everything Harmony by the Lemon Twigs. This is a gorgeous record. Such good songwriting throughout, and the opening track, When Winter Comes Around, is just beautiful. Oh, wow. You've then got a track like Every Day is the Worst Day of My Life. That is just beautifully lush melodies and one line, every day is the worst day of my life. And yet, has Misery ever sounded so pretty? On top of it as well, you're In My Head. Absolutely great track that sounds so like the Beach Boys. Corner of My Eye, What Happens to Her Heart, and the title track. And it's a beautiful record that nearly was my number one, but it was just edged out by my favourite album of last year, Deeper Well by Casey Musgraves. I heard this being played on the sound system in HMV. I'd never heard of her. I thought the purity of the tones of her vocal and song after song that just sounded so good, I bought it on impulse, and I do not regret it. Few albums I've heard in the last 15 years have had such an instant wow impact on me as Deeper Well. So, of course, there's the title track, Deeper Well, but Cardinal is beautiful. The Architect is my song of last year and quite possibly my song of the decade so far. But there's Jade Green, and I love Anime Eyes. I think it's a delightfully happy little track. Lonely Millionaire, Dinner with Friends, Heart of the Woods. Every time I put this album on, I find more to like about it. And Deeper Well, it's my number one album of the 2020s. And both this and Everything Harmony, I think, are genuinely 10 out of 10 5-star records that are faultless. So that concludes my top 50 albums of the decade so far. Let me know in comments below what yours might be. I'll be back soon with another video, but until then I'll remind you to subscribe, like, hit the bell and share the video, and thanks for watching.